Welcome students. Today we are going to start 8th chapter of history, and that is devotional paths to the divine. You may have seen people perform rituals of worship or singing bhajans, kirtans or kavalis or even repeating the name of God in silence, and notice that some of them are moved to tears. Such intense devotion or love of God is the legacy of various kinds of bhakti and Sufi movements that have evolved since the 8th century. Now, initially, there was the idea of supreme God. All of the clans were, when the constituencies were divided into smaller groups, and each had their own god and goddesses they worshipped. Slowly and gradually, they all united to become a large kingdom, and their focus was shifted to birth and rebirth. All human beings are not equal at birth, but now there were some of the concepts that came into the power again. There was the idea that was laid forward that the person from upper caste or high caste would be given power or would be given the ritual. Many people were uneasy with such ideas and turned to the teachings of the Buddha or the Jainas, according to which it was possible to overcome social differences and breaks the cycle of rebirth through personal efforts. Others felt attracted to the idea of the Supreme God who could deliver humans from such bondage if approached with devotion, or we can say bhakti. Later on, some people turned to Buddhist and Jainas teaching, however, others opposed to it. So there were numerous kind of reformation in the religious ideas that was going on. So some people talked about bhakti, and then they only focused on three gods, that is Shiva, Vishnu and Durga, and some followed Bhagavad Gita. So there were different cults that were introducing different ideas about different things. New methods of worship recommended in Purans were introduced into cults, and bhakti was adopted by Buddhists and Jainas. Now it all started first in the South India. So during the 7th to 9th century saw the emergence of new religious movements led by the Jnanals and Alvars. Jnanals means saints devoted to Shiva and Alvars means saints devoted to Vishnu, who came from all castes including those considered untouchable like the Pulyar and the Punals. They were sharply critical of the Buddhists and Jainas and preached ardent love of Shiva or Vishnu as the path of salvation. They drew upon the ideals of love and heroism as found in Sangam literature, the earliest example of Tamil literature composed during the early centuries of Common Era, and blended them with the values of bhakti. The Jnanas and Alvars went from place to place composing exquisite poems in praise of the deities enshrined in the village they visited and set them to music. So, if we talk about Jnanas, there were 63 Jnanas who belonged to different caste backgrounds such as potters, untouchable workers, peasants, hunters, soldiers, brahmins, and chiefs. The best known among them were Apar, Sambandar, Sundrar, and Manikavyasagar. There are two sets of compilation of their songs, Devaram and Tiruvakcham. Now, there are 12 Alvars who came from equally divergent backgrounds, the best known being Periyavallar, his daughter Andar, Tondridipodi Alvar, and Namalvar. Their songs were compiled in Divya Prabandham. So students, here you all can see the image of Mani Kavya Sagar, bronze image of Mani Kavya Sagar. Now, between the 10th and 12th century, the Chola and Pandya kings built elaborate temples around many of the shrines visited by the saint poets, strengthening the link between the bhakti tradition and temple worship. This was also the time when their poems were compiled. Besides hagiographies or religious biographies of the Alvars and the Nyanas were also composed today. We use these texts as source for writings histories of the Bhakti tradition. So as you all know students, hagiography means writing of saints' life. Now, some of the important leaders are the religious reformers. So, we had Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya, one of the most influential philosopher of India, was born in Kerala in the 8th century. He was an advocate of Advaita or the doctrine of the oneness of the individual soul and the supreme God, which is the ultimately reality. He taught that Brahman, the only or ultimate reality, was formless and without any attributes. He considered the world around us to be an illusion or Maya and preached renunciation of the world and adoption of the path of knowledge to understand the true nature of Brahman and attain salvation. Secondly, we can talk about Ramanuj. As Ramanuj, born in Tamil Nadu in the 11th century, was deeply influenced by the Alvars. According to him, the best means of attaining salvation was through intense devotion to Vishnu. Vishnu in his grace helps the devotee to attain the bliss of union with him. He propounded the doctrine of Vishvavedita or qualified oneness in that the soul even when united with the supreme God retained distincts. Ramanuj doctrine greatly inspired the new strand of bhakti which developed in North India subsequently. Students, now from map of India, you all can understand major bhakti saints and the regions associated with them. So, as we talked just now we talked about the Shankara Deva. In this region, we had Shankara Deva. Then we had in Uttar Pradesh Surdas Ramanand, 16th century, Kabir, 15th to 16th century, Ravidas, Vallabhacharya, then Tulsidas also. Then in Rajasthan we had Dadu, Mirabai, and here we had Guru Nanak. Then in Gujarat we had Nalsi Mehta. In Maharashtra we had Eknath in 16th century. Along with him Tukaram in 16th century. Then Janeshwar. Then Namdev, Ramdas, Baswanas in 12th century in Karnataka. Then we had Mani Kavya Sagar, Ramanuj, Namalvar in 9th century here in Tamil Nadu region. Under the topic Baswana's Vaishnavism, let's see Vaishnava movement initiated by Vaswana and his companion like Allama Prabhu and Akkama Devi. It brings the connection between the Tamil Bhakti movement and temple worship. This movement began in Karnataka in the mid 12th century. The Vaishnavas argued strongly for the equality of all human beings and against Brahminical ideas about caste and the treatment of women. They were also against all forms of rituals and idol worship. Now, the saints of Maharashtra, we can see from the 13th to 17th century, Maharashtra saw a great number of saint poets whose songs in simple Marathi continue to inspire people. The most important among them were Janeshwara, Namdev, Eknath, and Tukaram, as well as women like Shakubai and the family of Chokha Mela, who belonged to the untouchable Mahar caste. Tukaram wrote Abhang. Abhang was a Marathi hymn of saints. This regional tradition of bhakti focused on the Vithala. Vithala means a form of Vishnu temple in Pandharpur, as well as on the notion of a personal God residing in the hearts of all people. In fact, they even rejected the idea of renunciation and preferred to live with their families, earning their livelihood like any other person. while humbly serving fellow human beings in need. A new humanist idea emerged as they insisted that bhakti lay in sharing others' pain. As the famous Gujarati saint Narsi Mehta said, they are Vaishnavas who understand the pain of others. Narsi Mehta was the Vaishnava devotee only. Now there were some groups which follows none of the religion. Those were known as Nathpanthis, Siddhas and Yogis. They advocated renunciation of the world. To them, the path to the salvation lay in meditation on the formless ultimately reality and the realization of oneness with it. To achieve this, they advocated intense training of the mind and body through practice like yogasanas, breathing exercise, and meditation. Now, let's talk about Islam and Sufism. The saints had much in common with the Sufis, so much so that it is believed that they adopted many ideas of each other. Sufis were Muslim mystics. They rejected outward religiosity and emphasized love and devotion to God and compassion towards all fellow human beings. Islam propagated strict monotheism or submission to one God. In the 8th and 9th centuries, religious scholars developed different aspects of the holy law, Shariat, and theology of Islam. While the religion of Islam gradually became more complex, Sufis provided it with an additional dimension that favored a more personal devotion to God. The Sufis often rejected the elaborate rituals and codes of behavior demanded by Muslim religious scholars. As among the great Sufis of Central Asia were Ghazali, Rumi, and Sadi, like the Nathpanths, Siddhas, and Yogis, the Sufis too believed that the heart can be trained to look at the world in a different way. They developed elaborate methods of training using zikr, chanting of a name of a scared formula, contemplation sama, it means singing, raqs, dancing, discussion of parables, and breath control, etc. Under the guidance of a master or peer, thus emerged the silsila, a genealogy of Sufi teacher, each following a slightly different method, tariqa, of instruction and ritual practice. Under Delhi Sultanate, when several major Sufi centers developed all over the subcontinent, the Chishti Silsila was among the most influential orders. It had a long line of teachers like Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti of Ajmer, Kutubuddin Bakhtiar Kaki of Delhi, Baba Farid of Punjab, Khwaja Nizamuddin Aulia of Delhi, and Banda Nawaz Gesul Darwaz of Gulbarg. The Sufi masters held their assemblies in their khankhas or hospice. Hospice means students, house of rest for travelers, especially one kept by a religious order. They discussed spiritual matters, sought the blessings of the saints in solving their worldly problems, or simply attended the music and the dance session. Often people attributed Sufi masters with miraculous powers that could relieve others of their illness and troubles. As the tomb of Dargah of a Sufi saint become a place of pilgrimage to which thousands of people of all faiths thronged. As Jalaluddin Rumi was a 13th century Sufi poet from Iran who wrote in Persian, he was not on the cross of the Christian. I went to the Hindu temples. In none of them was there any sign. He was not on the heights or in the lowlands. I went to the Kaaba of Makkah. He was not there. I asked about him from Avicenna, the philosopher. He was beyond the range of Avicenna. I looked into my heart. In that his place I saw him. He was in no other place. The period after the 13th century saw a new wave of the Bhakti movement in North India. This was an age when Islam, Brahmanical, Hinduism, Sufism, various strats of Bhakti, and the Nath Panth, Siddhas, and Yogis influenced one another. Some of them, like Kabir and Baba Guru Nanak, rejected all orthodox religions. As Kabir writes about valuing the work of the ordinary potter, the weaver, and the women carrying the water pot label that in his poetry becomes the basis of understanding the entire universe. As Kabir said, untouchability is highest state of knowledge. It means not be touched by narrow limiting ideas, that is from the lowest to the highest state that a human being can achieve. So these lines you can put in your English or Hindi essay also. And others like Tulsidas and Surdas accepted existing beliefs and practices but wanted to make these accessible to all. Tulsidas conceived of God in the form of Rama. Tulsidas' composition of the Ramcharitramanas, written in Avdi, a language used in eastern Uttar Pradesh, is important both as an expression of his devotion and as a literary work. Surdas was an ardent devotee of Krishna. His composition, Lahari, expressed his devotion. Also contemporary was Shankaradeva of Assam, it means late 15th century, who emphasized devotion of Vishnu and composed poems and plays in Assamese. He began the practice of setting up namghals or houses of recitation and prayers, a practice that continues to the date. As we all are knowing, this tradition was included saints like Dadu Dayal, Ravidas, and Mirabai. As Mirabai was a Rajput princess married into the royal family of Mewar, but she never liked the life of palace, hence she left it and became a disciple of Ravidas. A saint from a caste considered untouchable, she devoted her life to Lord Krishna and composed innumerable bhajans expressing her intense devotion. Her songs also openly challenged the norms of the upper caste, and Mirabai became popular with the ordinary people. Once Mirabai was tried to poison by her husband, but nothing happened and she survived. This incident became very popular, and till date people believe that she was saved by Lord Krishna. Hence, she is remembered as a true devotee of Lord Krishna. As her song composition is here, Rana ji, I have left your norms of shame and false decorum of the princely life. I have left your own town, and yet, Rana, why have you kept up enmity against me? Rana, you gave me a cup of poison. I drank it laughing. Rana, I will not be destroyed by you. And yet, Rana, why have you kept up enmity against me? So, you all can see she is talking about the cup of poison only. It means she was a true devotee of Lord Krishna. Now, have a closer look towards Kabir, as Kabir was probably lived in the 15th 16th centuries, was one of the most influential saints. He was brought up in a family of Muslim chulahas or weavers settled in or near the city of Benares, it means Varanasi. We have little reliable information about his life. We get to know of his ideas from a vast collection of verses called Sakhis and Pads, said to have been composed by him and sung by wandering bhajan singers. Some of these were later collected and preserved in the Guru Granth Sahib, Panchvani, and Bijak. Some of his dohas collections are such as दुख में सुमिरन सब करे सुख में करे न कोय जो सुख में सुमिरन करे दुख काहे का होए. and one more is बड़ा हुआ तो क्या हुआ जैसे पेड़ खजूर पंछी को छाया नहीं फल लगे अति दूर. So many dohes he had written, and they are famous and popular also, as these dohas are in your NCERT Hindi book also, such as ऐसी वाणी बोलिए मन का आपा खोए औरन को शीतल करें आपहु शीतल होए. एक और है बुरा जब देखन मैं चला बुरा ना मिलिया कोई जो दिल खोया आप ना मुझसे बुरा ना कोई. Here we are having one description of Kabir's composition. O Allah, Ram present in all living beings, have mercy on your servants, O Lord. Why bump your head on the ground? Why bathe your body in water? You kill and you call yourself humble, but your vices you conceal. 24 times the Brahman keeps the Ekadashi fast, while the Qazi observe the Ramzan. Tell me why does he set aside the 11 months to seek spiritual fruit in the 12th? Hari dwells in the east, they say, and Allah resides in the west. Search for him in your heart, in the heart of your heart. There he dwells, Rahim Ram. So it means कि जहाँ कहीं पे भी देखेंगे आप वहीं पे भगवान है, गॉड है, खुदा है ना. वी नो नीड टू गो एनीवेयर. As Kabir teachings were based on a complete, indeed vehement rejection of the major religious tradition, his teachings openly ridiculed all forms of external worship of both Brahminical Hinduism and Islam, the preeminence of the priestly classes, and the caste system. Kabir believed in a formless supreme God and preached that the only path to salvation was through bhakti or devotion. As now let's have a look on Baba Guru Nanak. As Baba Guru Nanak, born at Talwandi, he travelled widely before establishing a center at Kartarpur. A regular worship that consisted of the singing of his own hymns was established there for his followers, irrespective of their formal creed, caste, or gender. His followers ate together in the common kitchen, and that is called langar. आप सब ने लंगर खाया होगा. The sacred spaces thus created by Baba Guru Nanak was known as Dharamsal. It is now known as Gurudwara. Before his death in 1539, Baba Guru Nanak appointed one of his followers as his successor. His name was Lehna, but he came to be known as he was a part of Baba Guru Nanak himself. Guru Angad compiled the composition of Baba Guru Nanak, to which he added his own in a new script known as Gurumukhi. Later on, the three successors of Guru Angad also wrote under the name of Guru Nanak, and all of their compositions were compiled by Guru Arjan in 1604. To this compilation were added the writings of other figures like Sheikh Farid Saint, Kabir Bhagwat Namdev, and Guru Tegh Bahadur. In 1706, this compilation was authenticated by Guru Tegh Bahadur's son and successor, Guru Gobind Singh. It is now known as Guru Granth Sahib, the holy scripture of the Sikhs. By the beginning of the 17th century, the town of Ramdaspur, it means it is in Amritsar, had developed around the central Gurudwara called Haramdal Sahib, Golden Temple. In 1606, the Mughal Emperor Jahangir looked upon them as a potential threat, and he ordered the execution. The Sikh movement began to get politicized in the 17th century, a development which culminated in the institution of the Khalsa by Guru Gobind Singh in 1699. The community of the Sikh called Khalsa Panth became a political entity. Now, Baba Guru Nanak had a huge impact on his development from the very beginning. He emphasized the importance of worship of one God. He insisted that caste, creed, or gender was irrelevant or for attaining liberation. His idea of liberation was not that of a state of inert bliss, but rather the pursuit of active life with a strong sense of social commitment. He himself used the terms Nam, Dan, and Isnan for the essence of his teaching, which actually meant right worship, welfare of others, and purity of conduct. His teachings are now remembered as Nam Japna, Kirat Karna, Vand Chakna, which also underline the importance of right belief and worship, honest living, and helping others. Now, as changes were happening in India, as we saw in every chapter of history, we have the world scenario. So, here we will talk about the efforts of Martin Luther. Martin Luther felt that several practices in the Roman Catholic Church went against the teachings of the Bible, and he started Reformation movement in Europe in 16th century. He encouraged the use of the language of ordinary people rather than Latin and translated the Bible into German. Luther was strongly opposed to the practice of indulgence or making donations to the church so as to gain forgiveness from sins. Now, finally, with the spread of printing press, his ideas spread far and wide, and you had the Reformation movement that started in Europe. So, this is how explanation of this chapter is done. Now, let's move to question and answers. So, let's start with match the following. The Buddha questioned social differences. Shankaradeva, Namghar, Nizamuddin Aulia was Sufi saint. Nyanal's worship of Shiva. Alvars were doing worship of Vishnu. Now let's see, fill in the blanks. Shankara was an advocate of Advaita. Ramanuj was influenced by the Alvar. Baswana, Allama Prabhu, and Akma Devi were advocates of Veerashaivism. Pandharpur was an important center of the Bhakti tradition in Maharashtra. Now let's move to question number 3. Describe the beliefs and practices of the Nathpanthis, Siddhas, and Yogis. The Nathpanthis, Siddhas, and Yogis criticize the ritual and other aspects of conventional religion and the social order. They advocated renunciation of the world. To them, the path to salvation lay in meditation on the realization of oneness with it. To achieve this, they advocate intense training of the mind and the body through practice like yogasana, breathing exercise, and meditation. Now, question number 4. What were the major ideas expressed by Kabir? How did he express these? Kabir was a Bhakti saint. He advocated the rejection of the major religious traditions. His teachings openly ridiculed all forms of external worship of both Brahminical Hinduism and Islam. The preeminence of the priestly classes and the caste system, Kabir believed in a formless supreme God and preached was through bhakti or devotion. Kabir drew his followers from among both Hindus and Muslims. Now let's move to question number 5. What were the major beliefs and practices of the Sufis? So your answer is Sufis were Muslim mystics. They rejected outward religiosity and emphasized love and devotion to God and compassion towards all fellow human beings. The Sufis often rejected the elaborate rituals and codes of behaviors demanded by Muslim religious scholars. They sought union with God. They believed that the world in a different way. They developed elaborate methods of training using zikr, it means chanting of a name of sacred formula, contemplation, singing, raqs, dancing, discussion of parables, breath control, etc. Now let's move to question number 6. Why do you think many teachers rejected prevalent religious beliefs and practices? So your answer is Many teachers rejected prevalent religious beliefs and practices because they want to bring equality among social castes. Needless to say that the lower caste they advocated that everyone regardless of the caste and creed has right to worship God. They wanted to free the right to worship God. Prevalent beliefs and practices were based on elaborate rituals which were in no way proper in the eyes of many of the teachers. Hence, they tried to simplify the rituals. They insisted on the purity of character and mind. Now, question number 7. What were the major teachings of Baba Guru Nanak? So, your answer is Baba Guru Nanak was the first Sikh Guru. The major teaching of Baba Guru Nanak were he emphasized the importance of the worship of one God. He insisted that caste, creed, or gender was irrelevant for attaining liberation. His idea of liberation was not that of a state of inert bliss, but rather the pursuit of active life with a strong sense of social commitment. He used the terms Nam, Dan, and Isnan for the essence of his teaching, which actually meant right worship, welfare of others, and purity. He gave importance to right belief and worship, honest living, and helping others. Now, question number 8. For either the Vaishyavas or the saints of Maharashtra discuss their attitude towards caste. So, your answer is the attitude of the saints of Maharashtra towards caste. The saints of Maharashtra rejected all forms of ritualism, outwards display of pity, and social differences based on birth. In fact, they even rejected the idea of renunciation and preferred to live with their families, earning their livelihood like any other person, while humbly serving fellow human beings in need. A new humanist idea emerged as they insisted that bhakti lay in sharing others' pains. Now, let's see question number 9. Why do you think ordinary people preserve the memory of Mirabai? As Mirabai was a Rajput princess married into the royal family of Mewar, but she never liked the life and became a disciple of Ravidas, a saint from a caste considered untouchable. She devoted her life to Lord Krishna and composed innumerable bhajans expressing her intense devotion. Her songs also openly challenged the norms of the upper caste and became popular with the ordinary people. Once Mirabai was tried to poison by her husband, but nothing happened and she survived. This incident became very popular, and till date people believed that she was saved by Lord Krishna. Hence, she is remembered as the true devotee. Now, here, yeah, as we discussed a few dohas of Kabir in this chapter in video only and in class also. So, students, you have to write any two couplets, it means dohas of Kabir, which has been taught in class. This is how our explanation of this chapter and discussion of question and answers everything is has been done. Thank you and have a good day ahead.